Junkies, where belching is acceptable. It's an acceptable form of film judgment and film analysis.
Hello.
Welcome. We're reviewing Cherry. We're talking quite quietly because a lot of the house is sort of at peace and at rest and sleeping.
It's so unusual.
It's so unusual. It's so quiet. But the Popcorn Junkies don't stop working to the point that I've even got... Have you seen this vein showing on the side of my head here?
Why is that happening?
I don't know. It slightly worries me, especially as my heart rate is plummeting almost.
Well, no, it would be the opposite.
Would it? Okay, that's good. Anyway, we're reviewing Cherry, which is the new Tom Holland film, released on Apple TV. Directors are the Russo brothers, Anthony and Joe Russo, who obviously are infamous for having directed the Avengers films. And this is essentially it's a sort of coming of age thriller / war movie / drug movie / I mean, there were so many films it was riffing on that I'm going to list off later, but how would you genreify it?
Well, you can't, because each bit was a different genre.
Yeah.
And it went on for... It's a long film.
It's such a long film. It's actually... It's 2 hours and 21 minutes.
Oh, so 2.5
It's about
hours.
almost an identical length to Avengers Endgame. Okay. Anyway, of course, it stars Tom Holland and it stars also Ciara Bravo.
Who plays his love
interest. This is a young adult male who falls in love due to a confusion in their sort of relationship, if you like, and a bit of sort of slightly, I thought, contrary behaviour on the part of Ciara Bravo.
Yeah, he's a bit of a no-hoper even at this stage, in that he's just doing menial jobs. And blah, blah, blah.
He signs up to joining the army, which he can then not reverse, and then he goes to Iraq. And then really it's a film about him struggling with his PTSD and his descent into drug addiction.
This is based on a book.
Yeah.
And in every respect, this actually happened to the guy, you know.
By Nico Walker.
Which is the thing that I find surprising, because it actually starts with a bank robbery, so I'm giving nothing away there. But he actually did rob banks. First and foremost, I would say this is clearly a movie that's designed to try and catapult Tom Holland into a category of actor that Spider-Man simply won't let him be. Exactly.
Do you not agree? And I think sitting alongside The Devil All the Time, is that the right time? Yeah, The Devil All the Time. It sits as two chamber pieces that really, for me, neither of them for Tom Holland are really the end result, and neither should they be, because he's such a young actor. But I think they really start the firing gun. They fire the starting gun even on his sort of more serious career as an actor.
Absolutely, and I would go much further than that. And maybe this is too soon to say this, but I thought that his performance and him generally, I thought he was way above the actual film.
It throws everything and the kitchen sink at itself.
Sure does.
Doesn't it, this film? First and foremost, it's a stylistic feast. I mean, the cinematographer, who is the cinematographer? I think he's one of the ones that they've worked with, Newton Thomas Siegel. I mean, you've got not only every shot is beautiful, every shot is well considered, every shot, every scene and setup is beautifully lit. I'm sure they used a few moments of CGI to get a bit of sun flare from the sun rising and all this kind of stuff in certain scenes. Yeah. In terms of its cinematography, it was absolutely, stunning.
Yeah.
But it was stunning in many, many different ways. I mean, it was almost like, in some regards, you could describe this as a sort of show reel. For an aspirant DOP, you want to say, I can do war film, I can do drug film, I can do bank heist,
I would say.
Would you say?
I would say.
Oh, okay.
Tried to do too much. And in a sense, one could say, and this is probably what you were going to say earlier, but one could say, the army bit is like a lot of other army bits. I thought Jake Gyllenhaal, Jarhead. The drug sequence is very much like other drug films. I thought Beautiful Boy and the one with Heath Ledger, Candy, which was a really good drug film, actually.
It's funny, in both those comparisons, I felt it was very much in the war scene riffing on Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket.
And I thought in the drug scene, the drug sequences, it was riffing on sort of Drugstore Cowboy. That Matt Dillon film where they rob pharmacies. Gus Van Sant directed. And at times it was a bit like The Deer Hunter, because it really is a film about the way in which war traumatises you. And you can't shake it. And, we watched it with Maddie and Kiki, and they found it a really emotional watch. I mean, it's quite a high certificate. There's a lot of blood and gore. Yeah. There's a lot of drug taking in it. So if you imagine you've got all of this being thrown at you, and you've got two actors holding it together, essentially, Tom Holland and Ciara.
Tom Holland is hardly off the screen.
Well, he's not off the screen at all, is he?
No.
The whole film pivots around such a contrary moment that you sort of... That in itself, for me, was kind of like not enough.
Oh no, I didn't mind that so much, because I do think that's what happens in life.
Yeah.
One moment leads to,
Right.
you know, the rest of your life. The directors didn't help him. He's obviously trying to get out of the Spider-Man thing and doing it, I think, well. The screenplay wasn't quite big. I mean, another thing it reminded me of, the drug sequences, was a bit Trainspotting-ish. And he had a few lines where he had to say it's wonderful.
I thought the tease was very good at the front. You were like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
Why is he robbing banks?
Yeah.
I had an overarching problem with the ease with which he robbed banks. There appeared to be absolutely zero CCTV or any sort of...
Yeah.
But then I couldn't work out whether, if you look at the names of the banks in this, they're all sort of like... They're sort of pastiche names.
Banco
like
Stupido.
Yeah, sort of
Yeah.
all Zero Bank, No Cash Bank, or
Yeah.
No Hope Bank. I mean, so there was a bit of magic realism in there, but it wasn't.
Oh, there was.
But it wasn't enough for you to kind of buy into even that.
No, and I mean, like the doctor. Oh, you obviously saw this, but the doctor who prescribes him his, you know, have you heard of OxyContin?
Yes.
Is called the Doctor.
The Doctor,
and I mean
yeah,
stuff
exactly.
like that. But as you say, there were only those nods to it.
Yeah.
Those were nods to a different type of film.
Well, no, almost like at times Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yes.
There were moments where it was sort of trying to go almost so extreme and hallucinatory and silly. And it would, you know, there'd be moments where, you know, the action would be so overblown and over the top. Like, I'm thinking of a scene later in the film where they've got the black safe and they're dragging it around and chucking it out windows and all that kind of stuff. And they were kind of going for the kind of comedy, but it didn't quite work. I mean, it's a really hard film to talk about because, of course, it's all about the fact that they end up becoming drug addicts. And yet, in the build-up, I thought, if I had a favourite section, I thought the war section was incredibly well done. I thought it was, you know, I
thought it was really derivative.
I think it was.
I didn't want it to be, but I thought it was.
I thought it was so like The Deer Hunter, this idea of them coming back to real life and how do they settle back into real life. You know, there's some really quirky characterizations, like, you know, Tom Holland's his best friend, who's one of them's got a sort of wayward eye. He was a great character.
He
His
was.
mate, sort of erstwhile,
Actually,
hapless
he was. Yeah.
dude who just kept sort of finding himself in trouble but managing to survive in a bizarre
Yeah.
way. And, you know, some really sort of potentially really funny, screwball funny, mess up heists, you know, where they're coming out, they're going in, they're high.
In a way, but the bits that were supposed to be funny, and I think this came from the screenplay, like the very first thing that he says, I think, is the trouble with robbing banks is that they're always women and you've got to be polite.
Yeah.
Now that's a funny line.
Yeah.
But there's that sort of line all the way through it, but it's not funny enough.
No.
And it's sort of not irreverent enough. And what I felt, I've just realised what I meant about Tom Holland was he played it totally straight.
Yes.
He played it as a war person, as a drug addict, and I think he did it magnificently with what he's got. But the directors seemed to me to be wanting to make a different type of film.
It felt like the directors didn't know what to do with the reality of life.
That's what I
because
mean.
they were used to dealing with the madness of the Avengers.
That's exactly what I mean. And you know the way the screen kept going to
Yes.
red in
Yes.
between the things. Each time it happened, I thought, this is what the directors like. They don't
Yeah,
like
graphic novel
Yeah.
stuff. You'd have scenes that would, in any other director's hands, be sort of really difficult realist scenes around, say, drug addiction, but they all became really stylized, kind of cool graphic novel, Marvel almost like shots of a couple going into degradation. I mean, we're jumping ahead again now, but I mean, once we've got past the sort of setup, once you've got past the war scene, I found their descent was like a descent into drug addiction for a couple by numbers.
It was, and I felt that very much that sequence, the director's point about the opiate problem, I thought it was them making their point,
Right.
down to the doctor saying, have you heard of OxyContin, and going into that. And
So social commentary was pretty damn
social
hit on the
commentary,
nose,
thank
wasn't
you.
it? It was hit on the nose.
And Tom Holland in the background acting his socks off as that boy.
Yeah.
And then the mismatch at times. I mean, somebody said somewhere, wasn't there, that oh my God, you know, Spider-Man's really grown up where we can see a scene where he's masturbating.
Yes.
And that's a sort of example of boy grown up, but he went for it and the directors didn't. And I
Whoa.
don't think the script did either.
Well,
be
no, I
honest.
think they all went for it. I think the directors thought this is how to make Tom Holland grown up. He masturbates, he takes drugs, he goes to war,
Well, yeah,
and
true,
he goes to
actually.
jail.
What
Yeah,
could be
what
wrong?
more will make
Growing up.
Tom Holland, the teenage Spider-Man, grow up?
True.
I want to give a special shout out to Jack Reynor, who is the erstwhile drug dealer who helped
I
someone
really
a number. He was
liked him.
brilliant. I mean,
I've seen
Tom
him
Holland was
before.
brilliant, but he was great. He's in Midsommar, and he was in Macbeth. Yeah, and he's been in lots of other films. But
The reason
and what
why
Richard
that's
did,
even
he's
important
very,
is-
very good.
Sorry, he is, and the reason why it's important to say that is, it's so full, and I don't mean this in any critical way, because it's
No.
clear that I love
It's an
Tom
ambitious
Holland.
film.
It is, but it's so wall to wall Tom Holland that the odd good
Yes.
parts that were there,
Yeah.
one has to draw them out, draw them to your attention, because they were good, and it was some time where it wasn't Tom Holland.
Do you think they were a little bit? They're not starstruck because obviously the Russo brothers have worked with people like Robert Downey Jr. and all the other Avenger actors.
Yeah.
But do you think they were so sort of committed only to almost the not resuscitation but the construction of creating Tom Holland the new movie star that they lost all sight of the film?
Yes,
I do.
that's exactly what I think.
Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, let's make this is going to be it. This is
Yeah.
your moment. And
Yeah.
in doing that, they kind of... Because there were certain scenes like where they kind of came together and they were dancing and they saw each other after he came back from war. And it was like, it was in a gym, and it was like another scene from an Avengers movie where Captain America walks in and puts his shield down. I mean, it's hard to shake the feeling that these guys are used to, I mean, enormously larger budgets than this one.
Yeah.
I think this one had 40 million, and you're usually looking at about 400 million for an
Really?
Avengers film. Yeah. I mean, the trailer was really gritty. It was beautifully, crisply edited. Don't get me wrong, there's lots about this film to like. It
Yeah.
looks beautiful. It's edited brilliantly. There are some really funny moments. There were shocking moments. I mean, seeing Tom Holland masturbate is shocking. I mean, it stuck with me, and I don't like it sticking with me. That's a terrible analogy as well. And I thought Ciara was good, though
She was goodish.
she wasn't as she didn't meet him like for like. I didn't think.
No.
I did feel that their degeneration into and their descent into sort of druggy hell was a bit cartoon,
Yeah, I did.
and I think they missed their target with the magic realism. I think
Yes.
they needed to either go more there.
Yes, either up it
Or not at all.
Or not at all.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I
I would
agree.
agree with that totally.
Yeah. The weird thing for all of us was we went into our back cave to watch it, and we hadn't all seen a new film for a long time, so I was extraordinarily excited.
And me.
And I came out of it really fired up, and I really felt and it burned. This film burns incredibly brightly in the watch, but it fizzled quite quickly for
Yeah, that's
me.
exactly what
Did it
happened to
you?
me too. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, and I
And I
was
mean,
kind
it
of-
is partly to do with the excitement of seeing a brand, and
Yeah.
it's a long film, and you can get into
Yeah.
it, and the performances are good, and all of that. But then it's a good way to put it. Burns brightly, but then afterwards, I kept thinking, well, really.
Because I think we're all hungry for epic.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just epic in sort of superhero style. We're epic in terms of range and reach.
Yes,
and
exactly.
We've become very used to as well with streaming, great actors really developing their characters across multi-episodes. So when
Yeah.
you watch them back to back, it's like watching a 5-hour film anyway.
Yeah.
So I think this was an interesting... I think this was a beautiful failure. In some
Yes,
ways. I mean, I
yes.
think it was... You literally... If you freeze frame the film on any scene, you're going to... There's a
Pretty much
lot there to
beautiful.
stimulate the eye.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
I'm going to have to say it one more time. Wigs. His wigs. They'd clearly shot his bald scenes first, and then had to, or later, and then had to plop a freaking wig on him to shoot the later scenes, or the flashback
scenes.
scenes, or the earlier scenes, whichever way round it went.
Mark,
He
you've got to
loo-
get over your
I
wig thing.
can't. You're asking us to believe so much. And every time you look at the one head that's on your screen all the time, all you can see is where the syrup's been fitted badly.
I didn't even notice the wigs. Well, I
Okay.
did actually, but
But I there was some fun. There were fun moments in there. I mean, the girls found it really heartbreaking. It is a heartbreaking love story. If you just take the story on its own, it's a heartbreaking love story. Yeah. So, do you want to sum up and give us your score, Mum?
it was ambitious. It was too ambitious. But I hate to sort of criticise things for being too ambitious. It was lots and lots of things. It was, as we've said, a social commentary. It was. I felt that there were problems around the script, the way. I felt that they were in Tom Holland's efforts to become a bigger person in the movie world, rather than Spider-Man and a boy. They gave him all these sort of parts to fulfill. He fulfilled them fine, and he was real Tom Holland's, the man in all of them. But the rest of the film wasn't. The rest of the film was all the, doing all their shots and the bank managers are the bank manager, and somehow it got lost in all of that. And you're right, because freeze frame it anywhere, it looks beautiful. And it's very easy, especially for me. I mean, I'm often totally seduced by that.
Style. It really is style over substance.
It is. And I had problems, maybe not the same ones as you, but had problems with the girl as well.
I did.
Because she didn't match him. And,
no, she didn't.
And as you say, you didn't really know what her motivation was half the time.
No.
And was that important, one could say? But as it was about Tom Holland.
I mean, I think it could have been, if it was, if her initial sort of I'm in love with you and then I'm not in love with you, and that causes him to go into the army, and therefrom from which everything else develops.
Yes.
If that was meant to be about the idea of how sort of fragile life is and those junctions in our life, which of course life is, we make those big snap decisions and all sorts of different narratives unfold. If it was about that, then I felt they could have played that even more in other areas of the film. Do you know what I mean? They should have played the sort of fragility of life or the fragility of choices, and there should have been other moments where that fragility was foregrounded, like in the war scene, where the vulnerability of everyone is taken. And they kind of did a bit, but it wasn't there thematically enough.
No. Well, you could say that they were playing it like mad in the bank robbery scenes, in the sense that nobody robs the bank. I mean, I presumed that was fictional. And it wasn't fictional. Yeah. So in that sense, I sort of started...
I still don't know whether he actually robbed banks or whether...
Did.
No, I know he did.
Yeah.
But did he? Because the way in which they did it in the film, there's no way you would be able to do that and get away with it.
No, I don't know how he did it, but I know when he came out of prison, he paid them back.
Yeah.
So
the writer?
The writer, yeah. So in that sense...
So you know that as a true story.
It was.
Okay, well, yeah.
And so, anyway,
what
all of that. Love Tom Holland. I would give it... What would I give it? 79.
Wow, okay, 79. I'm just going to read you what Variety magazine said about it. Variety said, there's hardly a moment in Cherry that's believable, but the film's true crime is that there's hardly a moment in it that's enjoyable either. The only emotion the movie conveys is being full of itself.
Ooh.
I think that's a little bit unfair. I don't think it was an arrogant film. I don't think it was a self-satisfied film. I think it was a film that was in awe of its lead actor.
Yeah.
I think they really want to elevate him into stardom as a sort of nuanced actor, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think they got bogged down in the sort of the pyrotechnics. I don't mean literally in special effects, but all the gizmos of making everything look good. I think there could have been a few more moments of some really gritty reality in here, just to kind of offset that. You can still be stylistic and have that gritty sort of feeling.
I thought there could have been a better script.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And I was about to say, I think maybe that problem derives from the script, because I think it was all too twee and it was all too neat and it was all too summed up and tidied up and everything like that. I really like the moments of kind of comedy. There are some really funny bits with Tom Holland's friends, and as I say, Jack Reynor was very funny. As I say, I mean, I came out, if you'd have asked me when I came out of watching this, I'd have said, oh wow, that's a 90,
Yes,
if someone held a gun to my head and said, give us a number from 1 to 100. At this point, I would probably look back on it and say 69.
Oh, well, you're not...
Yeah, I'm lower than you.
You're lower than me.
I'd give it a 69. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of the critics are saying.
No, I don't either.
And I think there's a desire to kind of knock it potentially because of the Russo brothers being Avengers. And it is quite I mean, I don't think this is my point. I don't think it is a cynical attempt to get Tom Holland to a bigger audience and a more meaningful place in his career. I think it was a genuinely felt story told. Yeah. But I just think that they're trapped a little bit in the trimmings of Marvelness.
Yeah.
And I think they need to think smaller and act smaller, and perhaps halve their camera kit budget.
Yes.
And, and work with a smaller crew.
Yeah.
That might help them. I mean, quite seriously, that might help them get more intimate sense of things.
If that's what they want to do. Yeah,
exactly.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.